What's up, world? So we've been working to discover the hidden good in our society.
And I think we're discovering the answer. And that's just the beginning.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Welcome back to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. You're with Grace at the Durian Heat. We'll talk about issues around Southeast Asia. And this time, I've been speaking with Jie Chen, who is the director of the Hidden Good. I love this organization so much. I mean, we just talked about what the company has done in Singapore and also to uncover the good in people and specifically from youth as well. And they have their own tagline there as well, that we can build a better world together. We look beyond the horizon where nothing is possible and every small act matters. And I can really feel based on what they have done, the activities, the projects, they have so many things going on. So let's continue our conversation with Jie Chen. You guys had a lot of projects. I can see already from the YouTube and your website. But what have you learned and what are the issues have you found, especially among youth?
In terms of youth issue, I think that's something that, we really explore because there are things that people think more of as youth issues, right? Whether it's education, employment and stuff. But something that we found is that every issue can be a youth issue. Like right now, one of the projects that we're working on is to build a more dementia-friendly community in Singapore, right, in this neighborhood called Yishun. And normally you wouldn't think of dementia as like a youth issue, right? But dementia, because it doesn't affect youth directly, right, but indirectly because people have grandparents, they have neighbors, they have, relatives that might be living with dementia, that becomes a youth issue. And I think being able to see every issue, whether it's, gender equality, aging, even transportation, right? Being able to take ownership of all these different issues is really that piece, taking ownership of the world that we want to live in. And I think that sense of ownership is really that core of the youth issue, right? It's like taking ownership rather than expecting it to be done for you or handed to you. But being able to do that, I think is our issue that we care the most about. Yeah.
Right. One of the issues that I figured among youth is they really don't know what they want to do in their lives, especially after their college graduation. They have the papers, degrees with them, but after all, they don't know where to step into. And even if they get jobs to work, but after all, they have so many questions in their mind that whether this platform is right for them. So what is your perspective when it comes to that situation among youth?
One of the initiatives that we have right now that's been running since last year is called Lysa Beach. And it's something that we've been working with a lot of the different schools. So the tertiary education level of students, where they're thinking, or sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're so caught up in school that they kind of forget to think about, so what do I want to do with my life? And then after school is done, then like, oh no, now what do I do, right? So getting them to think about this and asking them, so what's important to you? What's one of your goals? Doesn't have to even be a career goal, but what's something you want to do in your life? Right. What's something that you value? And having a space to ask these questions really allows them to even dig deeper. So some of them might say, I want to be an aeronautical engineer or something. Right. But right now, where they're at in terms of their education level might be really far away from that. So what we do is we break it down so that into pieces. So, here's the first step you could do. Here's the next step. So some people, maybe they want to build a business. And it doesn't even, this might not actually be what they end up doing, but going through the process of, what's something I want to do, and then breaking it down. So I want to build a cafe, for instance, right? So, a lot of people want to have cafes. And so what's the first step they could do within the next 3 months to get closer to that dream is to maybe, go work in a cafe first, do research on what kind of cafe they would like to have. What does the ideal cafe look like, and doing due diligence to delve deeper into what their dreams are, and being a platform to have a lot of these conversations that might happen in schools, might not happen at home, I think is something that we hope to do too. And a lot of these projects, because they're youth initiated and youth driven, they're usually driven by a cause that someone cares about. That being said, a lot of other people might have similar values. They might not necessarily agree with the same cause. Maybe the cause is about that similar value that they have is about acceptance.
All right.
And acceptance can look in so many different ways, right? Or
Exactly.
appreciation. So being able to also jump on other people's projects so that they can, explore opportunities and perspectives different from their own. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really a space where people can come and dream and do things they never thought they could do.
Right.
And have that confidence to say, hey, I can do something. I can make a difference.
Right. How about those younger generation who are not privileged enough to extend themselves further in terms of financial status or family issues? Have you ever approached them?
Extend themselves further, like if they extend like education or what do you
for example, it can be very different perspectives. First, it could be education. Second, they want to set up their own company, but they don't know where to approach in terms of funding.
So I think even before people set up their own companies, right? Sometimes it's the clarity or just, it's not, I'm going to start my own company, I'm just going to do it. Like, it's a lot about work, like getting that experience and that knowledge and that clarity. They might not have to go and work for like 10 years before they get that experience, but at least doing research, talking to people, like talking to people doesn't cost anything.
Right.
Being able to support them to do that. Yeah, I mean, I think our community at the Hidden Good is very diverse. Like, we have people from all different walks of life, like different backgrounds, different, at different points in their life too, but all youth. And I mean, the majority at least are youth, and being able to let them see possibly, okay, so, right now you might not have the financial means to maybe go to university or something. What's something you can do to continually learn? So making learning not look a certain way, that you don't have to go to university to learn about event planning, for instance, right? You just go work for events company and get that on the ground knowledge and understanding to really learn and gain experience. And sometimes that's even more powerful than just, learning theories and all that stuff.
Exactly.
So being able to break common perceptions, I think is something that we really try to do too. I mean, even for people, opportunities don't even have to look a certain way. A lot of, I think, resources out there are available and sometimes you don't see them. But in terms of you're talking about like technical expertise into like what scholarships you can apply for and all that stuff, we have really good partners that are specialists in that. So the National Youth Council in Singapore provides a lot of support for youth. If they have an idea that they want to do, they have the Youth Change Makers grant that they can apply for, and, a variety of other options and opportunities that they can take part in. But I mean, also that being said, I think we also need to we want to redefine what giving back looks like, right? So it doesn't mean that you have to, quit your job and go to Cambodia for like a year and build a house to be a good person. Like, it's not, it doesn't have to look a certain way. And yes, that's wonderful that people are doing those things. But if you have the constraints of having to put food on your table for your family, being able to needing to support the people in your life financially, and you have those financial constraints, you don't have to feel bad that you can't go and do those things, because giving back can look in the smallest things, like saying hi to the bus driver in the morning. It could look like, if you see a stranger that's looking lost, like making the little differences, because in the end, the little differences are the things that will make the biggest change in the long run.
Exactly.
Not like building a new school or a house, like that will affect one community. But, being able to kind of create that ripple effect. One of the projects that I really love that we're doing right now is called I'm Visible SG. So in Singapore, around the holidays, especially around Chinese New Year, there tends to be actually an increase in the number of suicides from the elderly, especially those living alone. Especially, Chinese New Year, they make food every day and like every year, and, people don't come by. That lack of, that sense of like isolation and loneliness, I think is actually one of the biggest problems that the aging population faces in Singapore. We actually have a pretty good access to medical services and, to shelter and food and the daily kind of things. But isolation and loneliness in the end, I think is really one of the biggest struggles for the elderly in Singapore. And, so what people do as this part of the initiative is that, they just go and talk to a stranger. They talk to, an elderly man or woman that sits in your neighborhood that maybe you see every day but never took the time to go talk to. It could be like the cleaning lady that you see all the time, but you always say hi, but you never really ask her what her story is. It takes half an hour to have a conversation, and it doesn't cost you anything.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And being able, and then we share those stories like online, our experiences after that, you know. So like for me, I spoke to like the cleaning lady at the building across the street from our office.
Right.
And yeah, you know, now like I see her in the mornings, and you know, it goes beyond just the hellos and good mornings and the mere pleasantries and greetings. But yeah, the other day she gave me pineapple tarts, like
Oh my God,
that
that's
she
really
made
sweet.
herself. And I was just so touched because, you know, I did not expect that when I spoke to her. But being able to just make that connection, and obviously not to assume that every old person is lonely. That's not what we're getting at all. But
Yeah.
to make those connections with strangers, it doesn't even have to be an elderly member of society, but more so, you know, the people that might be unseen, unheard, talking to people that you often take for granted and that often go unnoticed in, you know, in your daily life. So being able to do that, I think, is meeting people where they are. So it doesn't have to look like, you know, a huge project that you run on your own, but the little difference that you make every day that can make a difference in the long run.
That's a really great approach. But before that, why do you think people do not want to talk to strangers?
I don't know if people don't want to talk to strangers. I think inherently as human beings, we want to connect. We want to connect to other people. And there is this inherent desire to be part of something, like to belong. But I think what stops us from talking to strangers is often our fear of, you know, looking silly, or our fear of what would happen if I did, you know. And we've had this happen in the Hindu a lot because, you know, we do a lot of things where I'll use to go talk to strangers.
Right.
And like we did this thing called Ice Cream for Stranger. And I think you mentioned Kopi for Stranger
Yeah.
earlier, right?
Yeah.
And initially there is that hesitation. You know, one of our guys for Ice Cream for Stranger, we got strangers to sit down and have ice cream, Ben and Jerry's together. And it was really fun. But first they had to go and approach a stranger and say, hey, you want to sit down and have ice cream with me? And you know, this guy, he's like very cool guy. Like, you know, if you think like a popular kid, he would probably come
Right.
under that category.
Okay.
But he was so scared to talk to the strangers because he was like, you know, I'm worried about, like, I guess I never really, I'm scared of being rejected, you know,
Right.
I don't want to deal with rejection. So being able to get over that and just, you know, and once he met this group of like strangers and started talking to them and connecting, you know, they were there until Ben and Jerry's closed. Like, it's just the initial inertia that people need to get over. And after that, it comes so easily because I think it's the initial question that's like, oh, hi, you know, like, how are you today? And getting beyond those initial pleasantries and connecting. And after that, it just comes really easily. I think to anyone, even the people who are more shy or more reserved, it makes a whole lot of difference just reaching out. The reaching out is the hardest part. Everything
Right.
after that, I think, comes a lot easier.
Well, but on the other hand, I'm thinking that could it be also because of the culture side of the maybe the community or society that one holds. For example, if you talk about Malaysia, well, we smile a lot, but we don't really talk to each other. And also, Malaysia is a diverse country that we sort of have our set of mind when it comes to certain race or certain religion. So it could be also a culture, isn't it? But I'm not so sure about in Singapore. How has the culture crafted or thinking or the minds among people to talk to?
So I think in terms of culture in Singapore, you know, Singapore has grown so rapidly in the
Exactly.
last 50 years that I think oftentimes, you know, we grew so fast economically, infrastructurally, like that we kind of left a lot of that heart. The heart kind of got lost in the growth. And a lot of times, you know, it's really easy to get caught up chasing the newest job, the new car, the new restaurant on the market. Like, it's really easy to get caught up in all that stuff. So, but I think, as I mentioned earlier, like, I think it's an inherent need for human beings to connect. And sometimes you just get too busy, you know, we get too busy to stop and appreciate the people around us, you know, to stop and just take a look at the world around us and actually see what we love about it rather than a lot of the complaints. People in Singapore love to complain, and like I think it's a national like thing that brings us together, right? People love to complain, but often it's in jest. Like, I think the complaining comes also from just sometimes that
people just need to let it out at times.
Needing to let it out,
Yeah.
but sometimes also forgetting what we have going for us.
I see.
Because we grew so fast that sometimes we never stop and look back on like, oh my God, what have we created and done? What, the amazing things that have been done in the last 50 years. And rather than complaining that the train is like 5 minutes late, which happens here, like sometimes, very rarely, but rather than complaining, just be like, wow, we actually have a transportation system that takes us to any corner of the island. You can take public transportation anywhere in Singapore because we're so small, but also because it's so well connected. And I mean, even when the MRT broke down last year, there was one night, I think it just stopped for a few hours and people were freaking out because this never happens in Singapore, right? Everything runs so efficiently. But we could look at the fact that the train broke down, or that night, people were offering car ride, like people were carpooling, they were offering rides to strangers to get them home. There were taxis that were just offering an extra seat to a different passenger because they knew people needed to take it home. And when sometimes the system breaks down, that's when people step up too. But being able to look at the good in every situation, I think there's always a silver lining and there's always two sides to a coin.
You're now listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.